Welcome, lambs. Welcome to your Midweek Wednesday episode. If you're new here, my name is Kai, and this is Love and Murder, Heartbreak to Homicide. In today's episode, we are talking about the Haight family from Enoch, Utah, who was torn apart by a horrifying act of violence, leaving authorities still looking for answers. In early January 2023, 8 family members tragically lost their lives in what authorities have described as a murder-suicide. Before we begin, I want to remind you that this episode and all my episodes are sponsored by my lambs in Patreon. Patreon.com/Love and Murder. Michael Haight, a 42-year-old father, fatally shot his wife, Taucha Haight, who was 40, and her mother, 78-year-old Gail Earl, and their 5 children. The children were 3 girls ages 14, 12, and 10, and 2 boys ages 7 and 2. Because of this incident, police were able to see that the family actually had a troubled family dynamic. And in the investigation, they found that Michael had been under investigation for domestic abuse. There were accusations that had been made by his oldest daughter, the 14-year-old Macy, in 2020, and due to her accusations, this revealed a pattern of assault behavior over the years. Macy had told police that her father had, quote, become assaultive over 3 years and that he had ended up choking her, and that was just the first of his attacks. She was, quote, very afraid that he was going to kill her. That's what she said. Michael then told investigators that his daughter was, quote, mouthy, and that basically this was all a lie. Taucha then told officers that she didn't believe filing charges was necessary, and she expected Michael would take this as a, quote, wake-up call. And police left it at that. They said there was, quote, no indication that there would be any violent behavior on Michael's part, and that there was, quote, insufficient evidence to pursue criminal charges. So he was being investigated for domestic abuse, but it was his word and his wife's word against his child's word. And apparently his wife, at that time, thought that he had learned his lesson and everything would get better. On December 21st, which was 2 weeks before the murders, Taucha had initiated divorce proceedings, and only days before that, she told everyone that Michael had taken all of the guns out of their family home. Now, even though they were going through a divorce, Michael stayed living at the home with his family, including his mother-in-law, who was there because she was afraid for her daughter. So obviously, stuff was happening to the point where her mother had to come in, but Taucha still wasn't taking it seriously or reporting it to authorities. She probably thought it was going to blow over. On January 4th, police had been called out for a welfare check, and they had gone out to the house earlier that day. Basically, they called them for a welfare check because Taucha had missed an appointment earlier that afternoon. They ended up leaving because they said there were no signs or observations of violence. Quote, no one answered the door. It didn't appear that anyone was in the home since no noise could be heard. And I guess they could only do so much. I cannot fault them for that. They could only do so much. If you didn't answer the door, I mean, they couldn't really try the door or look through a window if the curtains were pulled. So I can't really fault them with this. However, later that same day, a family friend had gone to the house to check on the family since the police said they didn't see anything wrong. And they got in through an already open door. That's when they found Taucha, Gail, and the 4-year-old inside the first floor bedroom laying on pillows, partially covered with blankets and surrounded by blood. The other children were found in bedrooms throughout the house, all of them in their beds except for the 7-year-old who was on the floor. Then they found Michael, who was found lying on the floor in a sleeping bag. The friend then called 911 again and had police come back. And when they arrived, they found the bodies where the friend said that they would be throughout the house. As investigators delved deeper into the circumstances surrounding the killings, questions started popping up about why would he do such a thing? Why would he kill his entire family, including his mother-in-law, and then kill himself? Even though no official motive has been established, they've speculated that finances probably had a role in this. Quote, the family was nice, but they had fallen on hard times in recent months. Grantsville Police Rhonda Fields said, quote, we can't make sense of it right now. there's still a lot of work to be done. Now, the weird thing is an obit that had been published in the Spectrum didn't mention the killing and basically said that Michael was a good guy, like a good guy, family man, everything like that. Quote, Michael excelled at everything he did. After graduating from high school in 1998 as a Sterling Scholar in business, Michael spent the summer after graduation working in Alaska in a fish processing plant. His leadership skills of honest hard work and determination quickly led him to be the line manager and over a crew of 10 to 12 men. Michael met his future wife during their time at Southern Utah University, where he was named Outstanding Finance Student. They were married in St. George Temple on May 10, 2003. Together, they welcomed 5 children into their family: Macy Lynn, Brillianne, Ammon Michael, Sienna Bell, and Gavin Drew. Each of these children were truly cherished to them. Michael made it a point to spend quality time with each and every one of his children. Michael enjoyed making memories with the family. Excuse me, whoever wrote this obit. Do you know what else Michael did? I don't know who decided to write this and paint him in this great life, like he was a family man. He loved his children. He loved his family. Oh, such a great man that you want to follow into his footsteps. But you need a reality check person, whoever wrote this. Sharon Watts, who was an activist against gun violence and the founder of Moms Demand Action, came out and publicly condemned the obit, sharing a link of it to Twitter and saying that, quote, none of the obituary comments mentioned the victims. I mean, they did mention it in terms of they named the children, but what they didn't do was mention the murder or what he did. It didn't say that Michael killed all these children that he supposedly cherished. So they did mention the victims. I guess they didn't put his wife's name in there, and they didn't mention his mother-in-law. Then the family set up a GoFundMe, but they didn't mention Michael in it at all. And it had raised $95,000, which was going towards the funeral expenses and stuff like that. Quote, their lives were tragically taken too soon. All we knew was we loved them very so much. So that glowing review of an obit was actually removed. Well, someplace I see it said it was removed, and another place it said it was set to private. Either way, people can no longer see it, which is good because it was just a whole heap of a lie. And like I said before, the investigation is currently ongoing, so authorities are asking anyone with any information to come forward and let them know why this could have happened. And that is your Midweek Wednesday. What did you think of that case? I don't really have a poll question for this one because the only question I could think to ask, I really think it's not respectful, in my opinion. The question that I would have asked is, why do you think he did it? Do you think it was because maybe it was catching up to him that he was abusive? Or do you think it was finances that was the issue? So I don't know if that would be considered rude to ask that question about a family that was just shot in a murder-suicide, but that's the question I would have had. Other than that, I can't think of a poll question for this one. So instead, what I want to do is I do want to hear from you about this episode. Let me know what you think in the comments below. If I do think of a question, I will definitely put it out in the Spotify and in the After Hours podcast group. And as usual, if you are experiencing domestic violence, please call the National Domestic Violence Hotline at 1-800-799-7233, 1-800-799-7233, or go to thehotline.org. All calls are toll-free and confidential, and the hotline is available 24/7 in more than 170 languages. So please, before anything becomes too late, try and talk to somebody and see if this person can help you out. Don't do this alone. And in last week's Midweek Rant, I was so heated that I forgot to put out a poll question. And it was the episode of that guy who beat his girlfriend to death and then dropped the sofa on her and took a nap, if you remember that. That was part of the reason why I ended up taking Sunday off. It was just too much for me. And in response to that episode, Christina Bobo said, men and women, this is another cautionary story to leave before it's too late. And I completely agree. But, in the case of Alex Skeel, we were taught not to say leave. It's not just that easy. So I would say get help. Talk to somebody. Don't do this alone. And also, Kelly-girlfriend said, great video. Thank you for sharing this story. Thank you for listening, Kelly. And that is all I have for your Midweek Wednesday. Like I said, the only question I could think of for the poll, I personally don't think that it's respectful to put that question out there, so I'm not going to do that. But I do want to hear from you. I want to hear what you think about this. Let me know in the comments below, and I will see you in the next rant. Bye.